So the first question is for Mark and Brian. Since 1950, how many of you have eaten at Canlis? Raise your hand, please.
Oh, dear.
Okay, there you go. Okay, these questions are for you. Who was a captain in the Air Force? Raise your hand, please. Okay. Who had the higher rank? Who had more medals?
Definitely he.
Okay. Yeah. Who started working at Canlis first? Who focuses on staff, guest, and community relations?
That's a trick question.
Okay.
Mostly me.
Who focuses on business development? Who is the superior laser tag player in the dining room after hours?
Actually,
And thank you for bringing that up.
actually, you did just win the
I
tournament.
did just win the Canlis tournament again.
Who sees...
No, not again.
It was like undisputed, and then we had the tournament, and then I still won.
That's a false claim, sir.
Okay, who sees whiskey as a key ingredient in the success of Canlis?
Oh, the whole family.
Okay. Fellow Rotarians, Mark and Brian Canlis.
Who doesn't see whiskey as a key to success? Just make sure we've got the right crowd. Thanks for bringing up hypercolor. You know, our suits at Canlis are actually hypercolor.
Yeah.
And we're trying to bring it back.
You blow on them.
You can blow on it, yeah. Your armpits turn red when you get nervous on stage. It's really cool.
It's a terrible feature. Wow.
Hey, we're thrilled to be up here. And you have to know that it's an exceptionally humbling experience to see your hands go up when somebody says, "Who's dined at Canlis?" It's also terrifying to listen to Robert talk about companies that have failed. If you don't think that we could be one of those, you're gravely mistaken. Believe us, we think that, and every day we work towards it. And today we want to talk just briefly, we've only got 19 and a half minutes, about what it is that we do at Canlis and a little experiment and a little journey we've been on. You want to just take them kind of through it from the beginning?
Yes, so many of you know so much about who we are. I can review a little bit of that. We are fourth-generation restaurateurs. Our great-grandfather, many of you know, came over from Greece. He cooked for Teddy Roosevelt in Africa, believe it or not. He emigrated to Northern California. Our grandfather, Peter Canlis, went away from home and opened a restaurant in Hawaii in the 40s. Who then opened...
You were there. Hawaii
Has
Canlis?
anyone eaten at the Hawaii restaurant? Yes.
Thank you, Don Kraft and Bill Rex.
Yes.
You know, always count on you.
Our grandparents took, not our grandparents, our parents took over in the late 70s, ran it for 30 years. Mark and I took over about 10 years ago. But everyone knows something about
I took
Canlis.
over and then invited Brian in.
Yeah, that's actually true. And everyone knows something. And what I encourage you to do for the next little bit is to take whatever you know and put it in a little box, a mental box, and put it to the side. We'd like to talk to you about something that you probably don't know about Canlis. And most remarkably, everyone thinks that Canlis is about our founder, Peter Canlis. This my dad's dad, who I guess our dad. It's important, yeah. And
Call him our father.
but the reason, Bob asked us, why have you guys been around for 65 years? Why last night on an idle Tuesday were we completely full, every single table at every single moment? We think the secret to that actually comes from our mom's dad, a man by the name of Chapman Creighton, the other grandfather, who actually is more a part of who we are as a company than Peter Canlis really ever is.
Show of hands. How many of you have heard of Chappie Creighton?
Yeah.
Other than these four, who are basically family. Right. And all the time that we get written about and you dote praise upon us and other companies study us and we speak around the country on this issue, no one's ever heard of him. Shame on us for not letting you in on a little secret around what it is at Canlis that we're actually doing. I've got some news for you. You don't come to Canlis for dinner. You don't. It's not the transaction driver. How many of you know what's on the menu tonight? None of you, because it changes all the time. And thank you for bringing up the fact that we are allowed to change. None of you are saying to yourselves when you wake up in the morning and that night you have a reservation at Canlis, I can't wait to have the scallops with apricot and seaweed and coriander gel reduction.
That sounds terrible.
You don't, it does sound terrible.
We are not the chefs.
You don't think that way, right? It's not how we think either. The transaction driver for you and for us, when we go to a place like Canlis, sounds like this. Tonight needs to matter. Fill in the blank. Tonight's my wife's anniversary and my anniversary. Last year I goofed it up. This year I need to make it right. Or more relevant, perhaps, in the restaurant last night, two couples, both of whom's wives were out to here. One's due in a week, one is due in about a month. Tonight needs to matter because tomorrow, or essentially next month, we're fathers for the very first time. You think they ever get that night back? No. That night will never happen again, right? That is a one-time experience. You come to Canlis because it is safe. You come to Canlis because you can trust it. And we want to talk about why that is. So a little strategy that we have.
Yeah.
And we talk about these are really tall to stand on. So I'm just
really
wondering.
tall to stand on.
Yeah, but I think you can do it.
Well, it's important to understand there are, if Canlis or serving guests or opening every night is a game, let's say, there are rules to that game, right? There are rules you have. Oh, come on! No, we can do this one.
Go. No, we can do this one. He can do that. I'll stand on this one.
That hurts me.
Because you give the bad speech, and I
feel like it's a personal offense.
Here we go.
There are rules to this game. Rules like the food has to be delicious, the service has to be good, that the space shouldn't be dirty. There are so many rules you have to follow in all of one of your businesses. There are rules you have to follow, and a lot of businesses and restaurants try to believe that those rules are how you win. But think about it. You can't win by following the rules. Imagine, and we've done this a couple times, it gets a little hairy. Imagine.
It's worth doing. I think you should actually get up on the stool.
That it's the World Cup.
Right, imagine in the World Cup while he's climbing on the stool. How many of you watch, it doesn't matter. You should all watch soccer. And in that final game, you've waited your entire life to play this thing, and it's halftime, right? And here you have 80,000 fans, and they are screaming, and they're like, this, and there's like the chanting that happens, right? And then here we are, it's halftime and it's tied. And I want you to imagine being on that team and going in under the stadium and listening to your coach.
So all the team gathers around, right?
We huddle around.
And the coach is up here, and he's like, boys, we're going to go out there in the second half, and we're going to keep the ball inbounds, and we're not going to touch the ball with our hands, and we're going to keep 11 guys on the field the whole time, and it's going to be the best game ever. Go get them! It'd be like, seriously? Those are the rules. Like, of course we have to do that.
You laugh because it's ridiculous. How many of us in our companies forget that the rules are just the rules? They are not the strategy to win. And somehow, in this day and age and in this economy, what's happened is that it's become okay to leave the things that we deeply believe in, you heard the word earlier, the values, at home, and to not bring them into the workplace. There's a rule in our business that says you have to make money. We call that profitability. Profitability, by the way, is a rule to the game. It is not a strategy for winning.
Well, what's so great about rules is you can break them.
Yeah, we broke the profitability one.
All the time.
Sorry, Mom and Dad.
We're really good at
We
it.
definitely took over the company and lost money. There was this hard economy thing, and we made a bunch of mistakes ourselves.
No, but if you think about a
and it
game of
wasn't very
soccer,
good for us. Yeah.
you can kick the ball out of bounds. You do it all the time. The other team gets the ball. That's a bummer. But you can still win the game. Now, if you kick the ball out of bounds every single time you get the ball, you're not going to win. And if we lose money every single year, we will fail.
If you throw an interception on the last play of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. It's not so.
It hurts. but it's true. You can break the rules. The rules, they give us boundaries. They give us guidelines. They tell us where the field of play is and where it isn't. Right? But they are not a good strategy for winning. Here's what that speech could sound like, right? Should sound like. Something like this. If any of you ever played a sport, it sounds something like, okay, look, you have 45 more minutes to play the game that you've always dreamed of playing. So you remember you've been playing this since you were a little kid. You love the smell of grass. You love being out in the open sky. You love to kick the ball. You've been doing this and dreaming on this moment your entire life, and all you have to do right now is remember who it was that you were born to be. Remember that you're a soccer player. You have to go out there and play your game. Win or lose, if you don't do that, you'll go home unhappy. If you don't do that, you'll go home unfulfilled. You have to remember that you're out there just to do what you were born to do. I'm not a soccer coach anymore, but it always sounds something like that. But in business, how many of us do that? At Canlis, it looks like this. When we hire you, we ask you a lot of questions. We try to put you at ease. There's about 3 interviews that happens. There's a 12-hour stage. You work with our staff. And then at some point when we think it's safe enough, we're going to ask you this question. How will working at Canlis help you become who you want to become? Not what. How will working at Canlis help you become who? What is, I want to be a chef. Yeah. I want to be a sommelier. I want to be a leader. I want to own my own company one day. That's what. You are a business leader. You are a business leader. You are a leader, right? You are a chef. I'm asking who.
It's important, but it's a rule. You should work for, but the who is the strategy. In fact, the whole strategy behind Canlis is that relationships are more important than anything else.
Does that make sense? Who looks like this? Tell me about your grandfather. Oh, really? You really respect him? Why? You start getting that prospective employee talking about his grandfather, and suddenly you have a window into his soul. The things he says about his grandfather or her grandmother or some mentor they've had, that is directly in line with who they hope to become. And Mom always says right here, we're motivated in the direction of our hope. If you want the people that work for you to really work for you, you better plug into who they're becoming and stop paying attention to what. The experiment we're doing at Canlis is to start paying attention to who more than what. It's really tempting, and I want to give you a little analogy. We don't have the elves today, the wardrobe elves.
We don't.
But I just think it's a good, could you take us through if we had the wardrobe elves? Let's pretend we had the wardrobe elves.
Imagine if right now, at all of your homes, your houses and closets are being ransacked, and they stole all of your clothes.
Everything you own when you get home is gone.
And they leave 2 T-shirts. Long T-shirts, maybe.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, for decency's sake.
It's not scandalous.
Yeah. It's Canlis, after all.
And one T-shirt says, in big, bold print, it's worth putting others first. And the other T-shirt says, it's worth putting me first.
Just like this.
Yeah. And that's it. And you had to choose one shirt to wear to work that day. What shirt
You
would
could shorten the shirt. You could shorten the shirts to say, I like to pay attention to myself.
That's not shorter.
You could say, me first.
Yeah.
And the other one could say, you first. You know what's great about T-shirts? You can wear them both, but I can only read one of them at a time. Right? If you had to choose a T-shirt to wear to work tomorrow, which would you choose? Here's where we're really nice to you. We don't make you raise your hand on this one. But I'll tell you this. We've always wanted to be the kind of people that would wear the you first shirt. It's really hard to do. I have one at home. I try to put it on. It's amazing how many things covered up. I try to keep it out on front. It just doesn't work. It's hard with your kids. It's hard with your wife. It's hard with your brother. It's hard running a family business with your parents. You can't imagine, or maybe you can, just how hard it is. But when we talk to our staff, 95 employees, and we try to create a culture that is the Canlis that you remember and the one that you desire in the future, do you know what matters? That matters. The mission of our company is a little weird. It's to live out and grow the idea that it's worth putting other people first. Remember what's missing? Profitability. That's just a rule. We're not going to focus on that, on the mission of our company. We play by the rules. We're really good at it. We're Canlis. The mission of the company is to live out and grow the idea that it's worth putting other people first. And then we have 3 values: trustworthy, generous, and others-centered. Do you know what those values are? They are no more than an expression of who we are hoping to become as men, as husbands, as fathers, as leaders to our staff.
And if we find people in that interview process that the who they're trying to become is trustworthy, generous, and other-centered, and then we're surrounding ourselves with people who are all trying to become something in the same direction, then the hiring process becomes not about what can you do for me and my company, and what can your skills do at our company. The hiring process becomes where are we all going together? It's not selfish. It's actually other-centered. How many interviews have we been in where halfway through we say, you're the most talented person that we've met in a long time, but hiring you would be selfish because it's not who you're trying to become.
And how many of you would go on a second date with someone who was selfish? Right? I've got 2 girls at home. One day some guy's going to come along and ask to marry one of them. Do you know what I'm wondering about him? Is he safe? Is he a safe place for her to put her heart for the rest of her life? Right? It's essentially what I'm going to be wondering other things about other things. But essentially that's the driving thing. Is he safe? Right? Trust is what I'm talking about. Is he trustworthy? Which is why it's the number 1 value of our company. We believe that trust is the foundation of every relationship. You and your cat, you and your mom, you and your kid. Trust is the currency of relationship. And inside of that, vulnerability is the currency of trust. So if we're not willing on the outset to start asking the questions, who are you becoming? Shame on us, right? The damning news about being a leader is that we have to do it first. So the expression of values, trustworthy, generous, other-centered, is us saying, this is who we wish we were. And if somebody wants to join us, come on board. And you can't imagine the crazy people we hire. Very few of them have experience. Rule to the game, if you're being hired in the kitchen, you better not chop your fingers off on day 1. We're not sitting around a campfire singing Kumbaya here. There are rules that you have to pay attention to. But our hypothesis is that you can actually bring the values that we all know to be true in here, or the way that we were raised, into the workplace. It is a different way to do business, separating the rules from the strategies. And ours is unproven. You may think of us as being successful, but if you look back at that mission statement, it wasn't to have a restaurant for a long time. It wasn't to be the best restaurant in the country, which is both of which are important to us. It's to live out and grow the idea that it's worth putting other people first. Are we successful in that? We want to be. And we're learning how all the time. And this has just been our little hypothesis, our little theory. We've got 1 minute.
You're doing so well. I'm just
watching. Did I
watching.
skip anything? Did I miss anything? I didn't. Oh, do you know, we didn't get the notes in our final minute.
What? Do we make notes?
Well, we had our notes.
No, they're up here.
Oh, you got them right here. We did the T-shirts.
Well, I was going to say a quick example real quick, and then we'll do some Q&A. everyone asks, Sue just asked me, how do the valets work? Everyone wants to know.
Oh, it's worth talking about.
Right? We've already given you the answer of how the valets work. We hire valets who care. The whole secret, and it's a little bit vulnerable to open the kimono on our secret.
You.
But what's that?
You can tell them. Most of them won't believe you.
Is that they just remember because they care. That's it. They look at your face when you walk in the door, and they care who you are as a person. They look at your car, and they think, that needs to be back by the time they get back up to leave. There's no cameras, there's no written down system, there's no nothing.
That's it, people. 65 years of famous valet service. It's not fancy, but it feels good. I once said at the front desk when Dad was teaching me how to be the maitre d', I'm like, oh, Dad, I'm really bad at names. He's like, no, you're not. You just don't care about them. I was like, yeah. He said, I'll pay you $1 million to remember the name of the next guest that walks in the front door. Point proven, right? You think I remember the name? He didn't have the $1 million, so I didn't remember the name. But had he had the $1 million, I can guarantee you, we would have remembered. It is about caring. We'd love to open it up and talk. We got about 4 minutes right now to take questions and answers.
Mark and Brian, it only seems obvious that either one of your parents have to speak for a moment. You want to say something?
Well, yeah, my question would be, what is it about Chappie Creighton that has informed the values and the culture today?
Sure. Forbes today wrote about Canlis. They said, a peek inside, it's a terrible article, but the Seattle's most exclusive restaurant. I hate that term. I think we're Seattle's most inclusive restaurant. And Chappie Creighton lived on this tiny little plot of land in Pensacola, Florida. And they had this card table, they had this long dining room table. They had no money. We were raised super poor. And on Sundays, no matter what, no matter who came over, the door was open and anyone could sit down and join them at their family dinners. And we did this as kids. We'd go and
add card tables.
Yeah, and so the more people that came, was like, oh my gosh, they would go get little fold-up tables and they would add it to the end, and they would add it to the end, and the more people would come, and they would pull over a big chair, and pretty soon you almost had the table going outside the house of trying to cram everyone in, because there's always space for everyone no matter what, because people matter.
Hospitality is about making space for people. That example is about card tables and chairs. What we're talking about is in here. It's creating room for somebody.
Amy has a question, Mark and Brian.
So you guys just did a national search for a chef, and after the long process, you ended up throwing the book out the door and went a completely different. So why this chef?
He loved our values. He looked at Canlis, and we spent time. So our interview was very little about food. It was about understanding who this guy was and who he wanted to become. I know we said that, but when he says, I want to become a guy who can lead a kitchen of men and women who don't want to necessarily cook like me, they want to become like me. And that's what's missing out there in the world of chefs, is a leader of
and politicians people. And.
Yeah.
There's no separation between church and state, right? You don't just get to say, I'm a great chef, follow me, I'm a lousy person. He's great at both, and that's why we grabbed him, and it's pretty rare to find that.
Yeah.
Mark Davis has a question.
Thank you, Bob. Some of us know about the history and background on Fair Start, but others don't. So if you could give us some background there and why you chose that as one of the key.
We didn't, but Mom and Dad did. So that's really their deal. And about 10 years ago, I worked with quite a team of people who helped do a large capital campaign for Fair Start because it was on your guys' hearts, right? Mom, you want to talk about that?
Right. Living a lifestyle of generosity is something that we were taught growing up. It is something that we've taught our children. And a lifestyle of generosity, you think that's basically a financial part. But a lot of times, finances is only one part of it. A lifestyle is also using your LIFE, your life and your labor, what you have to offer others. I is your influence. And it was the Canlis influence. We put our name with other people who had the gift sets that we didn't have to raise that kind of money. F is your finances, of course. And then E was experience and expertise. So we were generous with that. And that is why Fair Start we believed in, and it is a part of living a lifestyle of generosity, giving what you have.
That's really all the time we have. I just wanted to say, and let's talk afterwards. We'll stick around. Please understand what a huge honor it is for us to stand up here. And please hear that we don't think we have the answers. We're happy to go down this road with many of you. So thank you for continuing to support us.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you both.